downtown Portland. So I just landed about 2 hours ago, and we went straight to the heart of Portland for lunch at the Saturday Market. The Saturday Market has a bunch of food vendors and craft vendors selling arts and crafts things, and it's right here on the water. The market's over there. So yeah, it's very popular. It's every Saturday, pretty much all day here in Portland, and it is really close to the famous White Stag Portland sign, which I will show you guys a picture of. And yeah, so I'm going to take you around with us today and the next few days, showing you everything that we are doing in Portland proper and nearby during our Pacific Northwest vacation. So let's go see the rest of Portland. So here is the river that the Saturday Market is on, and this is about as scenic as Portland gets, so take that as you will. But it was nice that they had a walking path option here that was paved. The Saturday Market is every Saturday, and it's very similar to what you might see in your local city or town, but it's every Saturday, probably more frequent than you have near you. There are a lot of crafts and artwork and flowers and homemade items, as well as food options, many from food trucks or small restaurants. This was not a super impressive market, but it was a nice thing to add to the list to do. The noodles here is what we had for lunch, and it was just fine. It was good enough. The Portland White Stag sign is located right next to the market near the river. It's at a bit of a hard angle to take a great picture, but you've got to get one. It is iconic for Portland. After visiting the market, we headed into the core of the city and visited the Pioneer Courthouse to check out the architecture and the Pioneer Courthouse Square right out front, which often has concerts and public events going on. We also swung past the Portlandia building to check out this iconic building of Portland. Unfortunately, while we were walking around the city, the thing that we noticed the most was the sheer prevalence of homelessness, which is very upsetting, a tragedy, and I did not feel as safe as I would have liked to. Our next stop was inside at the Oregon Historical Society and the museum there. There was a small entrance fee, but they had several discounts available, so make sure any of those might apply to you. There were a lot of exhibits here, including some testimonials that you could view about people who have lived in Oregon and Portland throughout the years. They had a rotating exhibit about the 19th Amendment and women getting the right to vote. And they also had a really fun exhibit about the soccer teams in Portland. The real jewel here is the top level, which was recently renovated, and it is the Experience Oregon section. So this was basically the history of Oregon from, literally the land being formed to today. There were a lot of artifacts, there were a lot of viewpoints. I would definitely recommend this museum if you are a history fan or if you would like to learn more about the history of Oregon and Portland. The Experience Oregon section was very up to date and I really enjoyed it, but this museum is not a must if you don't have the time or the interest in the history. Of course, every tourist visit to Portland has to include a visit to Powell's Books, which is the largest bookstore independently owned in the country, and it is huge, must be explored. And of course, then we had to visit the famous Voodoo Donut. We went to the original location in downtown Portland, and it is very impressive the amount of people that want donuts from here. Absolutely, online order for pickup is a must. We skipped that huge line. There are lots of options here, including many vegan options, which is great. As someone who has a dairy allergy, I can actually eat some donuts here. I really enjoyed checking out the shop, and here is my review of the donuts. Okay, so today we picked up some donuts from Voodoo Donut in downtown Portland from the original Old Town location, and it's been a few hours and they have been in transit, so don't totally judge the visuals of the donuts because they have bumped into each other a little bit. But it comes in this really cute box, the Voodoo Donut logo, and there are so many donuts. So they have a lot of vegan options. as well as regular standard donut options. This one is the only one that is not vegan. It's a spicy chili one. The rest are all vegan, because I'm dairy free, so my husband is eating that one. Now, let's try one. Their signature donut is the Voodoo doll, which is this guy, and he comes in vegan and regular, and he's got a little pretzel stick stabbed into him for Voodoo. So I'm gonna give him a bite. Get a good close up, and let's go. It's really good. I don't get a lot of donuts that are dairy free that I can eat. The steak's perfect, and he is way hefty. So I cannot wait to dig into the rest of these over the next few days. So I definitely recommend Voodoo Donut if you're coming to Portland or any of their other locations. They have a few other ones around the country, a few in Texas, and at both Universal Hollywood and Universal Studios Orlando City Walk. One of the fun things about Voodoo Donut is the style and names of their donuts. They're very creative, but there are some that are definitely not safe for work, shall we say. So if you're visiting with little kids, keep that in mind when you're looking at the names and the shapes of some of the donuts. They were all really good. I thoroughly enjoyed the offerings, and I would love to get them again. We're staying at the Homewood Suites Beaverton, which is a Hilton property. And this is a standard one king room. You see it has basically a full kitchen, everything but an oven. It's got a stovetop, dishwasher, fridge, microwave. I can open it. An ice maker in the fridge. And then at normal times at Homewood Suites, they have evening socials. Right now, due to the pandemic, they don't. And you will usually see on your fridge a schedule for the evening social, which is basically free drink and some snacks. Some Portland artwork. And we are about 20 minutes outside of the city of Portland. Then we have got a sofa, little ottoman, little table that moves, sofa, chair. We've got a view of the parking lot, which is fine. I picked the first floor. You've got 3 drawers here and a cubby. Don't mind all of our stuff. Cabinets as well, and somewhere to sit. And then the bedroom has doors to it that you can close. Got a king bed, lights, and little dressers on each side. Over here you have got a desk and a dresser and another TV. Got the vanity, full-length mirror, 1 sink, and you have a closet with an ironing board, extra pillows and blankets, hangers. Got one of these things for luggage. And then the second half of the bathroom with a shower tub. So yeah, these rooms are pretty big and they are moderately priced. I really like Homewood Suites. They are probably my favorite Hilton property. Hi, I'm here at Multnomah Falls, which is about 30 minutes outside of Portland, Oregon. It is a very popular tourist destination here. As you can see, there are falls right behind me. It's a really beautiful waterfall. I absolutely recommend coming to take a look at it. There are several other waterfalls, museums, and other scenic destinations in the Columbia Gorge area, which is where we are. So I'm going to take you along to the different spots we're going to, and here's some more details first about our visit at Multnomah Falls. First, let's talk about getting to Multnomah Falls. It is easily drivable from Portland. It is under a half an hour away from most points of Portland. However, parking can be a challenge. There is a medium-sized parking lot that includes RV parking right off of Highway 84. It is directly off of the exit. This is your best bet for parking in the morning. You do have to walk on paved pathway that I'm showing here, under the road and over to the falls. Everything is ramps or handicapped accessible, stroller accessible. So that shouldn't be an issue. There is a much smaller parking lot located right off of the historic highway, which is the more scenic route. This one is much, much smaller, so I advise that you take the Highway 84 and the first parking lot that's a little bit bigger and make the walk over to the falls. It shouldn't take you more than 3 or 4 minutes. If the parking is full upon arrival, you can take a shuttle that does have a small cost attached to it from a further away parking lot. So get here early to ensure parking. Getting here early also means smaller crowds, so getting here as soon as the park opens is your best bet, even perhaps a little bit earlier. There is a gift shop, restrooms, coffee bar, and restaurant at the entrance. After walking a very short distance up some stairs or a ramp, you will see this beautiful view of the falls, a fantastic location for some photos. This is where you'll want to decide how far you are going to want to walk or hike. So the pathway up to the bridge that you're seeing here is paved. It is fairly flat, as in it is well paved, but it is uphill. You could definitely do a stroller up to the bridge. Beyond that point, you're not going to want to have a stroller. I think a wheelchair is possible up to the bridge, but it is going to be a challenge. If you have concerns that, you're not an experienced hiker, no worries. This is an easy walk up to the bridge. Heights are a concern. Be aware that you might feel like you're walking on the side of a mountain. I am not afraid of heights, and I did not have any issues. I recommend that anyone who can should make the walk to the bridge. It definitely adds to the experience. My recommendation is, if possible, make this walk up to the bridge. It definitely adds to the experience. As far as going beyond the bridge, if you want to get a good hike in, if you want to see some of those high up views, go ahead. If you want to go all the way to the top, be prepared, knowing that it is very steep uphill after you get past the bridge. It's not, you're not rock climbing or anything like that, but it is consistently steep switchbacks going up to the top of the waterfall. Here's a look at the trail beyond the bridge. The trail itself is not as well kept, and it is steeper and steeper as you go up the switchbacks. But it is paved, so keep that in mind. The views also get better and better. We went up about 4 switchbacks and then turned back around. Going to be a lot for little kids. I found an abandoned stroller on like the second switchback, so I don't think this is going to be a long activity for people with small children. If you have mobility concerns, if you're in a wheelchair or an ECV, you can still come here, and you can come to the bottom here of the falls. There are ramps from the handicap parking lot to the bottom here, but beyond that, you're probably not going to get too if you have some mobility concerns, but you're not, in a wheelchair, you could probably get up to the bridge depending on your situation. Beyond that, I wouldn't recommend really trying it. So this is definitely something that everyone can enjoy, at least a part of it. And if you are just gonna go to the bottom, you still saw it. It's still an experience. It's still definitely something to check out while you are in the Portland area. And I don't think you will feel like you really missed much, because if you're not a big hiking person, then the hike is really not, you're not missing anything other than the hike, and you don't like to hike, so you don't need to hike. For the rest of our time in the gorge, we took the historic highway and found the views really fun. We next visited the Bonneville Dam Fish Hatchery. You can see here the hatchery pools. They had a lot of fish here that you could view, and seasonally they have a salmon run where you can see the salmon jumping, and they also had some viewing ponds here for sturgeon and several other varieties of fish. And boy, some of these fish get really big. I did not realize how big a sturgeon was. This is a free activity, and there was a decent amount of things to see here. If you want something to add to your day, I think this is a fun addition, and it's something other than just hiking, which is a lot of what the rest of the gorge is. Now you can easily just drive through the historic highway, and you will see all of these stops just right on the side of the road. This is a stop here that we were not planning on making, but we drove past it and there was parking, and so we took a look. The parking along these areas, most of them are very small side of the road. Some of the waterfalls have larger parking lots similar to what you see in Multnomah Falls, but you are often going to encounter parking being an issue. Another reason to get here early to get the best available spaces. The second of the falls that we stopped to visit was Bridal Veil Falls, and we did not have trouble parking, but we may have just been lucky that there was a spot open when we pulled up. This was about 10-minute walk from the parking lot where there was a restroom to the falls itself. Now, the trail here is not paved like Multnomah Falls. It is a dirt path with some boardwalks. There are stairs, and it is a well-worn dirt path, but it's a dirt path nonetheless. So a little bit more of a hiking challenge than, say, Multnomah Falls was. The plus here is that you can get much closer to the falls itself. You can get right up to them, really. And many people were, and it was not that challenging to climb down to get right where the falls were. A little bit of climbing on some rocks to get down, but not hard. I recommend this as a second falls to see, to get a different sort of experience that you can get really close up. And while it was about just a 10-minute walk to get to the falls, there were some longer hiking trails beyond the falls that you did have the option if you wanted a longer hike. Now, our last stop in the gorge, where we got this beautiful view of the whole gorge and the Columbia River, was Vista House at Crown Point. A great stop. We were able to park here as well, though it was a bit of a walk. We did not get into the first parking lot, but one of these smaller secondary areas. This building is historic, and normally you can go in it. It was closed while we visited, though. This is a great way to see everything you've done during your visit to the Columbia Gorge. Now, there's much more in the gorge that we didn't do. There are more waterfalls, a ton more hikes. There are museums about the Oregon Trail, and there are fancy bridges in small towns, and you can keep going for several hours of driving. The gorge and both of the falls were absolutely my favorite things about the Portland area. They are a must visit if you are going to be in Portland. Now, before we left Portland and moved on to our next stop, we did visit the Peacock Mansion, built by some of the founders of Portland, and you can get this great view of the Portland skyline. And the mansion is also a beautiful place to take some portraits. The mansion is also able to be toured during the day. Of course, that does come with a fee, and the grounds have a lot of trails on them. You can even see Mount Hood in the distance, which of course is a fun day trip from Portland. Now, two big Portland attractions that we did not do. One is breweries and beer. There's a ton of it. I don't happen to be a drinker, and my husband's not much of one either, so we did not partake in any of the breweries, but if you enjoy breweries, this is the place to go. The second being the Japanese botanical gardens. Very, very popular here in Portland, so that is something to check out if you enjoy gardens. So, my overall review of visiting Portland was the city itself was a bit of a letdown, but there are a few iconic things that you should visit, like Voodoo, Doughnuts, and the Powell's bookstore. The area around Portland, absolutely beautiful. The waterfalls are a must see, and as you'll see coming up in some of my next vlogs, it is very close to the Oregon shore, which is absolutely gorgeous and a must see as well. So use Portland as a jumping off point or maybe an ending point for a larger trip, and don't plan more than a day or two in Portland itself. Thanks so much for watching. Again, my name is Katie and I am a travel agent, and I would love to be your travel agent. All of my travel services are absolutely free of charge to the traveler, and you can contact me at the information on the screen, and I would love to get you a free, no obligation quote for your next adventure to the Pacific Northwest or elsewhere. Have a great day, everyone.